The night in Arnett Gardens never truly sleeps. It simply changes its clothes. When the sun drops behind the concrete tenements of South Street Andrew, when the heat thins into a humid dusk, and when the last vendor pulls their cart from the corner, the jungle transforms. The chatter shifts from market talk to street talk. The music changes from gospel to dancehall. The children vanish indoors, and the men with history step out. This was the world that formed William Augustus Moore. Born on March 14, 1961, in Kingston, Jamaica, William did not arrive into comfort. He arrived into a community forged by politics, poverty, and survival. Arnett Gardens, known to its residents as Concrete Jungle, or simply Jungle, was more than a neighborhood. It was a fortress, a battleground, a cradle of culture, and a laboratory of power. He was the third child in his family, raised among narrow lanes, zinc fences, and the ever-present hum of sound systems. His mother worked hard. His father, like many men of that era, struggled to provide in a city that offered few legitimate paths to prosperity for boys like him. William attended Jonestown Primary, where he learned to read, write, and navigate a world that valued toughness as much as intelligence. But the classroom could only teach so much. The real lessons came after school, on the blocks, under the streetlights, in the company of older boys who moved with authority. In those days, Arnett Gardens was already under the shadow of powerful figures. The Wild Bunch, led by the infamous Anthony General Starkey Tingle, ruled the area with an iron grip. To a young William Moore, Tingle was not just a gangster. He was a symbol of power, a man who commanded respect with a glance, a man who could make crowds scatter or gather with a single word. William watched, he observed, he absorbed. When Tingle was murdered around 1981, the balance of power in the jungle shifted violently. The death of a Don did not bring peace. It created a vacuum. Young men like William saw opportunity in chaos. The old order crumbled, and a new generation prepared to rise. By the early 1980s, William had already begun to build a reputation. Not yet the feared Willie Haggart, but a man people knew not to underestimate. His nickname, Haggart, was said to have come from Hogheart, a reference to his toughness, his stubbornness, and his willingness to stand his ground no matter the odds. The streets tested him early. In 1980, he faced his first documented brush with the law. On November 11th, 1980, William Moore stood before the Halfway Tree Resident Magistrate's Court, convicted of unlawful possession. The exact nature of what he possessed was never clearly detailed in records, but the fine was small, just JMD $50. To some, it was nothing. To others, it was the first official stamp on a life that would become legendary. By the early 1990s, Jamaica itself was changing. The political tensions between the People's National Party, PNP, and the Jamaica Labour Party, JLP, were embedded into communities like Arnett Gardens. Garrison politics shaped everyday life. Voting was not just a civic duty. It was a matter of survival. William aligned himself with the PNP, as did most of Arnett Gardens. But his influence went beyond politics. He was not just a party loyalist. He was becoming something more, a Don in the making. During this period, he spent time abroad, linking up with figures like General Skeng and the Spangler's Army in the United States. The details of his time overseas are murky, whispered in dance hall corners rather than recorded in courtrooms. Some said he learned the international side of the underworld. Others claimed he simply absorbed a new style, flashier, bolder, more theatrical. When he returned to Jamaica in 1993, he was different. That same year, on November 30th, 1993, William Moore was convicted for possession of marijuana. The court fined him 100 Jamaican dollars or 30 days in prison. He paid the fine. Again, nothing major on paper, but his reputation on the street continued to grow. By the mid-1990s, Willie Haggart was no longer just another tough man from jungle. He was assembling something bigger, the Black Roses Crew. Named after Rose's Corner, a key area in Arnett Gardens, the Black Roses were more than a gang. They were a movement, a brand, a statement. To some, they were protectors of the community. To others, they were enforcers of fear. Willie positioned himself as their chief of staff, their leader, their guiding force. Publicly, he was known as Cha-Cha Boy, or Million God, a flamboyant figure in the dancehall scene. He dressed sharply, moved confidently, and commanded attention whenever he entered a room. On any given night, you might see him dominating a dance floor, pulling off intricate moves that made crowds roar in approval. He was a natural entertainer, a showman, a man who loved the spotlight. But there was another side to Willie that only a few dared to speak about openly. Behind the laughter, behind the champagne, behind the designer clothes was a man with a volatile temper, a man who allegedly would not tolerate disrespect, a man known for boxing down people who crossed him, for making examples out of those who underestimated him. The Black Roses Crew became notorious for their control over Arnett Gardens. They were said to be involved in turf wars, extortion rackets, and violent enforcement, though concrete evidence tying Willie directly to specific crimes was scarce. Much of his infamy rested on reputation rather than convictions. In 1995, he was charged with robbery with aggravation, essentially armed robbery. The case, however, was later dismissed. No victims came forward publicly. No trial made headlines. To his supporters, it proved his innocence. To his detractors, it proved his influence. As the 1990s rolled on, the legend of Willie Haggart grew larger than life. Dancehall culture embraced him. The Black Roses brand spread beyond Jamaica's shores. People in New York, London, and Toronto whispered about Rose's Corner, curious about what made it so special. To outsiders, it looked glamorous. Parties, music, dancing, luxury cars, and a larger-than-life leader at the center of it all. But beneath the surface, darker currents flowed. Stories began to circulate about Willie's alleged connections to international drug traffickers, particularly Colombian cartels. One of the most persistent tales involved a betrayal within his own circle, centered around his sister. According to several accounts, Willie's sister worked as a domestic helper for wealthy Colombians in the United States. During her employment, she allegedly stumbled upon large sums of money, referred to on the street as milk powder. She reportedly contacted her son and Willie, urging them to come quickly and seize the opportunity. They allegedly did exactly that, stealing a massive amount of money and fleeing. But the consequences were brutal. The Colombians, upon discovering the theft, allegedly captured Willie's sister. According to widely circulated accounts, she was tortured for days before being killed in a gruesome manner, often described in hushed tones as a Colombian necktie, a term too horrifying for many to explain in detail. Whether every aspect of this story is true remains debated. What is certain is that the incident forced Willie to flee the United States and return to Jamaica permanently. Back home, the story only added to his mystique. Some saw him as a man who had outsmarted powerful international criminals. Others viewed him as reckless, someone whose actions brought danger to his own family. Regardless, his wealth seemed to grow. By the late 1990s, Willie was considered one of the most liquid men in Kingston. He owned businesses, a trucking company, a haberdashery, and a liquor store that were widely believed to serve as fronts for other activities. He mingled with politicians, secured government contracts, and moved through high society circles, that few men from Arnett Gardens ever access. Yet instead of calming down, Willie's ego expanded alongside his bank account. He wore diamond rings, flashed luxury cars, and made bold statements about his power. His favorite line, reportedly, was that even his dentist used diamonds, an exaggeration meant to emphasize his wealth. At the same time, he remained deeply embedded in the streets. He never fully distanced himself from the ugly side of his world. The violence, the guns, the threats, the political warfare that defined garrison life in Jamaica. This is where Willie differed from some other dons of his era. While many criminals tried to fade into the shadows once they became rich, Willie leaned into the spotlight. He wanted to be seen. He wanted to be admired. He wanted to be feared. He wanted to be everything at once. A dancer and a gunman, a celebrity and a shadow king, a community leader and an alleged enforcer. This dual identity made him fascinating and vulnerable. Arnett Gardens in the late 1990s and early 2000s was a tinderbox. Political tensions ran high. Rival gangs jostled for control of neighboring communities. The police watched closely, aware that men like Willie could destabilize entire regions with a single command. Meanwhile, within the Black Roses crew, internal rivalries simmered. Power attracts envy. Money breeds betrayal. Not everyone under Willie's banner was loyal. Adding to the complexity were rumors of violent incidents tied to his name, some more sensational than others. One of the most disturbing alleged stories involved a young woman he was said to be dating in Jungle. According to street tales, infidelity sparked a confrontation that ended in her brutal death. Her throat allegedly slit, her face slashed, and her body dumped in a garbage bin. No charges were ever brought against Willie in connection with this, and no official investigation conclusively linked him to the crime. Yet the rumor lingered, staining his reputation in the minds of many. To his supporters, these were just lies told by enemies. To his critics, they were evidence of his true nature. As the millennium turned, Willie stood at the peak of his influence. He was known as the chief of staff of Arnett Gardens, the face of Black Roses, and one of the most recognizable dons in Jamaica. His name carried weight from Kingston to Montego Bay, from dancehall sessions to political meetings. But power in Jamaica is rarely permanent. In 2001, the atmosphere in Arnett Gardens grew tense. Political violence was escalating across the island, and Arnett Gardens, being a strong PNP stronghold, was deeply entangled in the turmoil. There were whispers of rivalries, both internal and external. Some said Willie had made too many enemies. Others believed he had become too powerful for his own good. On April 18, 2001, Willie Haggart left his home on Lincoln Crescent in Washington Gardens, Kingston. It was an ordinary day in appearance. Nothing about it screamed danger. He moved with his usual confidence, unaware that this would be his final journey. As he walked along the street, unknown assailants approached. Gunshots shattered the calm. William Augustus, Willie Haggart Moore, was gunned down in an execution-style shooting, collapsing onto the pavement that had shaped his life. He was 40 years old. No one was ever charged in connection with his murder. Some believed it was politically motivated. Others pointed to gang rivalries. A few speculated that it was revenge for past betrayals. The truth remains officially unknown. In the days that followed, Arnett Gardens mourned and celebrated him in equal measure. To many residents, he had been a protector, a provider, a symbol of their community's strength. To others, he had been a source of fear, violence, and instability. Dancehall paid tribute. Politicians sent condolences. The streets buzzed with theories. Willie Haggart's death marked the end of an era. The Black Roses crew would never be the same again. Rose's corner remained, but its most iconic figure was gone, somewhere between myths and reality, between dancehall and darkness, between hero and villain. Willie Haggart's legacy continues to live on. In the music, in the stories, in the concrete walls of Arnett Gardens that still echo with his name.